The Seattle Storm going through a little bit of rough weather at this juncture in the season, but will a move before the trade deadline help them get back on track? We're going to talk about that and so much more on Tempestashi Talk. That was the wrong button. Here we go.
You have three people who are selfless like that, three people who are dangerously disciplined like that, and you have a coach that also embodies all of those characteristics. You can expect good basketball.
I love interacting with the fans. I'm excited for them to cheer for us because it's hell when you come here. I even welcome people that could be skeptical because it's new.
There's going to be a standard of excellence and discipline in everything that we do.
The Pacific Northwest, this area, how passionate they are. It's culture everywhere, but it's great culture here. That's what I want to be a part of, to compete for a championship. That's everybody's goal. And I think it's just how we go about things and habits that we create. I want to be around winners that'll help us get closer to that.
And that's what the fans can expect. And we're going to have some fun.
Hey y'all, welcome to Tempestashi Talk, part of Black Rosie Media. My name is Erica L. Ayala, and of course, we are going to talk about the Seattle Storm. This is one of our podcasts, keeping a local eye on the Seattle Storm. The Seattle Storm continue to be a team that, on the one hand, you see the vision and you respect the grit and the hustle. On the other hand, there are times where those very same things are endlessly frustrating. And I think that's a little bit of how the players are starting to feel. I mean, in our Slack channel, we have people also, reading into body language and things of that nature. So we might get into that, especially if some of that pops up into the comments. But, they were able to play a very close game against Indiana, but fall to Indiana. They play a pretty close game for stretches against Minnesota, fall in that game. And so now the Seattle Storm are in a position that we talked about, not just earlier this season, but that we saw late last season. And so they went from being a top 4 team, top 3, top 4, give and take at times this season, to now they're in 6. And they are just ahead of the Las Vegas Aces, half a game ahead in the full league standings. Conferences don't really mean much in the way the WNBA does playoffs. Talk to me as a frustrated New York Liberty fan when all that went down. But that's for our other podcast, Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans, which we usually record on Monday. The Seattle Storm right now, 4-6 in their last 10 games, 3 straight losses. They are above 500. So I like that. 16 and 14 on the season. So let's break this down a little bit. We're going to break down especially that Minnesota game. I was just really watching what we heard from head coach Noel Quinn, what we heard from Erica Wheeler. Dawn Malunga was also brought out again. I love that we're seeing more minutes for her. But here's that game flow chart. I always like to get the game flow on here. I don't know why this viewer window is a little weird. Hold on a second. Hold, please. That doesn't look great. They changed the settings for us here in StreamYard. I don't love how that looks, but okay. Here's what we're working with. the lead tracker, you can see the kind of game flow, ebbs and flows here. The Seattle Storm, of course, represented by the green, but it's in the latter parts of games that we're seeing things slip for Seattle. And the players themselves in the last 2 games have talked about third quarter being somewhere they really need to kind of clamp down. But if you look at the breakdown, 1-point game after the first 10 minutes, Seattle actually had a better second quarter. Then things flipped where Minnesota scored 28 points in the third and the fourth quarter, 23 points in the fourth for Seattle, 21 points in that third quarter. When you look at points in the paint, you like what Seattle was able to do. This was a team, the Minnesota Lynx, without Nafisa Collier, but you like this. This one hurts. Second chance points, and it goes back to rebounding. The players were asked about it. They know it is an Achilles heel, a bugaboo, whatever you want to call it. Rebounding without Nafisa Collier. The Seattle Storm were out rebounded 34-24 to this Minnesota squad. Fast break points, 17 for Minnesota, 10 for Seattle. That's an area where you'd like to see them be able to pick it up. But you got to get rebounds in order to get fast breaks. Turnovers were pretty high for both teams. That's another area that Seattle will want to fix. And then turnovers about the same, points off of turnovers. Seattle actually won that out by 3 points. Nneka Ogwumike was your leading scorer for the Seattle Storm. She actually was the leading scorer in this game overall. And then you had Courtney Williams that really came alive in the back end of this game for Minnesota. And that's in part what is missing, I think, from this Seattle Storm team. And Noelle Quinn said something interesting after this Minnesota game. She, talked about, I'm paraphrasing here, but she talked about being able to hit another gear. And she alluded to that, that the team is going to get someone that can help them do that. And that was her, I would assume. I wasn't in the room, but I mean, we're talking about Brittney Sykes, right? We're talking about Brittney Sykes. We are going to talk about that trade in a little bit. I just want to set the tone here, let y'all know where we're kind of at with things. But, whether you want to call it hitting another gear, whether you want to call it, I've talked about maybe, and we've talked about this in Slack, we've talked about this on the live shows. Is this team maybe a little too soft, a little too polite? They need an edge, as I like to say, sandpaper. They need some sandpaper, and they don't always have it. They just don't. And you can feel any kind of way you want about it, but facts on facts on facts. This team, not as a team, doesn't always have it. And again, I know that Hoeta, is burning the candle at all ends. So I want her to be able to. I want her to be able to step in and talk about this, but we'll have to do that another time. But, we have Craig, who's a longtime listener. Leslie also chimed in when it comes to this idea of maybe Skylar Diggins getting frustrated. Is Skylar Diggins frustrated? And if we're talking about a Seattle Storm team that they're starting to pull some pieces together, but they're not getting over the hump. They're starting to do some things, but rebounding is still an issue for them. I do see a world in which Sky is extremely frustrated. We talked about last season on Tempestagi Talk that Skylar made it very clear, if you don't show up in the WNBA, you're going to lose. Those are not her exact words. I will not repeat her exact words, but that still holds true. As a matter of fact, excuse me. I forgot to bring my water over. As a matter of fact, Noel Quinn was asked in the press conference after the Minnesota game, you know, what makes it so difficult to win? It's always been, I think Joveta actually asked that question. What makes it so hard to be successful, to win, to find ways to win in the WNBA? The first thing that she pointed to is a topic that we'll have to talk about, and that is the schedule. Compact schedule doesn't leave a lot of room for recovery, but what it also doesn't leave a lot of room for is time to get into the gym and practice. So you're relying on film, you're relying on communication, you're relying on pride to fix things. And all of those things are important. You need all of them. But you know what you also need? Practice. You need practice. You need a chance to, when the stakes are nothing, be able to make all of the mistakes, make all of the adjustments, break it down, talk through it, and then start building that muscle memory. So that's a conversation. I'm here in New York right now, caught up with Dallas, caught up with New York. Those are two teams, probably the top two teams with regard to having to deal with injury this season. And they are talking about recovery. We know the Sparks, another team that that game was on CBS. So I did pregame, I did postgame, I talked about that game again today. Another to Kelsey Plum saying, why are we winning? Why are we collecting these wins later in the season? Because we're healthy, because we have our 12-person roster, so that's one of the things. The other thing for Noel Quinn is about, honestly, if I had to paraphrase, it's about execution. And you have to be able to find, again, that second gear. You have to be able to, when the play calling is equally matched, when the officiating isn't your best, when your key player, impact player, reserve player, whatever, any kind of player goes down with an injury, we also saw that potentially play a factor. When all of those things are inevitable in sport, in the WNBA and basketball, they're going to have in life, those things are going to happen. Who's going to go when you are that close and snatch the game from the jaws of defeat? From the jaws of defeat. Who's going to do that for you? Who's going to do that for you by, as Noel Quinn alluded to, getting to the foul line? Who's going to do that for you by getting a big defensive stop? Who's going to do that for you by getting a big shot? And we've seen some of that, even in the loss to Minnesota. We saw that from Nneka, right? Just as an example, huge three-pointers down the stretch. And it's not enough. And that's where the frustration is coming from. That's where the tension is coming from. So to go back to Skylar for a moment, we know that Skylar has gone off and will go off about smaller things, but it now compounding, all of these things compounding. And I could see a world in which, yes, she's extremely frustrated because you're right there. Now you have to grab it. At some point, it just becomes a decision. You don't ask how. You don't ask how long. You don't ask who is going to do it. You step up and you take it on. And you know what? Exactly, Craig. That's what what Noe said. She said, before she said all of what I'm talking about, she alluded to Sykes coming in. And so the question here for this episode, are recent roster moves enough to make the Seattle Storm a contender? And let's start with the critiques or the criticisms. We have been talking since the beginning of this season, since the off season. Is there enough shooting? Is there enough shooting for this Seattle Storm squad. No true two. Is there enough shooting? Who's going to get you the shots from the perimeter, especially? Sykes doesn't help with that. And so Sykes doesn't help you with that as a true two. Sykes doesn't necessarily help you with that as far as numbers overall, career numbers, season numbers, as far as, you know what, someone who's just going to go out there and shoot lights out. That's not Brittney Sykes. I think we can be honest about that. That's not Brittney Sykes. But you know what Sykes is? She's a strong body. She has grit and sandpaper, P and V. That's something I say on my Seattle Kraken podcast a lot. Allow me to, I don't think it's overly vulgar, but it is kind of brash. There's a term, P and V, that I say on Locked on Kraken. And that's because Ryan Donato, cannot believe we let that man go. Anyway, he's playing for Chicago now. Ryan Donato would say, yeah, we need a little more edge. We need to, play with a little more piss and vinegar. That's Slim. P and V all day. If you watched Unrivaled, Slim will throw her best friend down on the ground. I have seen Slim get up in Sabrina Ionescu's face more times than I care to recount. Sky, this is a take, my impression, and maybe because I can relate to her intensity, you get to a point where it feels a little like, what's that phrase? If you keep doing the same thing and expecting the same results, that's the definition of insanity. When you're as intense of a person, as intense of a player, of an athlete, of a competitor as Sky, it doesn't always happen, but there can be this fatigue of running at that high of a level all of the time. And I'm getting the impression that Skylar is doing perhaps some assessment, evaluation, and just on that cusp of trying to figure out, do I go all the way live and be who I've always been, do things how I know how to do them, say things how I say them, and everything be damned? Or can I find a different path? Is there a different way to yield the results that we need? That's the impression that I'm getting. And there is an immense level of frustration when you're working that through. I also say this a lot on my Seattle Kraken podcast. I liken things that are very difficult and uncomfortable to like when you're trying to grow your hair out. And maybe that's because I'm in the process for like the last, 8 years of trying to grow my hair out. Cut it, super cute, loved it, super easy, no muss, no fuss. But every once in a while, I want to whip my hair back and forth. Okay? And yes, I have cute, dangly, big, clunky earrings that give me a little bit of flow, but it's just not the same as when I get to whip my curls. And so I have to decide, do I want to be right now, as I am right now, in that messy middle where the curl it doesn't have the weight that it needs. It maybe doesn't have the volume that you're used to. So the shape is a little cray-cray. Can I get through that? If I just wait, can I get through it? Or am I just like, zoop, cut it off all over again? At least I know where I stand and I can do what I got to do. If you can't relate to that, then I apologize. My whole point is that sometimes you get to a point where you're trying to see what is best. If you go all the way with who you are, or if you just let up a little bit and maybe let somebody else take the lead. If I had to guess, maybe that's a little bit of what's happening with Sky, but ultimately what we're probably seeing is also just a frustration. Erica Wheeler has expressed that frustration. because this team can do better. They know they can do better. They have done better, and they're right there. They're right there in some of these games. So that's the good news, but it also it's almost more frustrating because it's good, but it's not good enough. It's not good enough. And that's hard. So yes, with Sykes, absolutely 100% the Seattle Storm are leaning into P&V, sandpaper, and defense. That is not necessarily going to move this team from where are we striking right now with the Seattle Storm? About 82 to 88, just under 90 points a game. Is she going to move the needle and get you 5 extra points per game, cumulatively as a team? Does she get you 10 or 15, which I'm sure they would love? I mean, the LA Sparks in their last, I think 6 or 7 games, 5 of the 3 or how many? 3? Did they get 100 last night? I don't think so. I think they had 3 times where they hit 100 points or more. That's not what Sykes is going to give Seattle on her own. But what if, by way of Sykes being there, there's less that everyone else has to take on and more that they can give in other areas? What do I mean by that? Brittney Sykes is going to tell it like it is. Slim's going to tell it how it is. And so, again, if Sky is in that messy middle, like I am right now with my hair length, bringing someone else in that can see what she sees and say what she would say, the way she would say it without her having to say it, huge. Because now she's like, oh, I'm not crazy. At least, within this context, I'm thinking of myself. I'm not putting that on Skylar Diggins. Don't come for me. Nobody. I'm not. Don't come for me. I should have been more clear. I'm just, that's me, right? I'm not saying nobody else is cray. I know I'm a little extra in certain areas. And if I can find someone who I know sees things how I see them and is willing to say exactly what they see, I'm like, that is my homie. Like you get those people who are like, oh, I'm so glad you said something. Like I was thinking that. And, I'm just so glad you said it. Like, I can't stand when people tell me that, like after a meeting or something like that. I'm like, if you were thinking it then, and you saw me taking boom, 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 all these strays, why didn't you say something then? That's not going to happen with Slim. Slim's going to call it like she sees it. That's my interpretation. So that's less that Sky has to do in that respect. It's less perhaps just talking about leadership that Nneka has to find the right way, the right time. And she does this dang near flawlessly. But that's a lot of energy. And it's energy that Nneka as a human, as a leader, as a basketball player, that she willingly puts in. And if you can find another voice that's maybe not all the way amplified like Sky can be sometimes, but also can cut to the chase in a way that's, again, just a little different from Nneka, I think that's what Sykes gives you too. What else do I mean? Gabby Williams, I find endlessly fascinating because I don't think she gets the reputation as a shooter. And there were times in her career, just WNBA career, that she truly wasn't that. The Gabby Williams that we've seen evolve on the international stage, to the point where if she had just curled her big toe a little bit more, France would have taken the United States to overtime in the gold medal game. That's the Gabby Williams I want to see playing for the Seattle Storm. Why is this related to Brittney Sykes in my estimation? Because Brittney Sykes and Gabby Williams can play relentless. They will flat out embarrass you with the things that they can do defensively. Their timing, the way they read the situation, the explosiveness, the the speed, the agility. I mean, yes, I suppose I could have just said they are athletic, but especially with Black women, I am a little more cautious with using that term without explaining it. All of that, and a high IQ. If Gabby has someone else who she knows has the same or similar instincts defensively, then that's less that she has to do defensively. In theory, right? In theory, it allows her to, maybe she doesn't overcommit on some things. Maybe she, can settle on her mark and not be so keen on, other things, because there's someone else that, if the team has a lapse or a gap or a lane that opens up, there's someone else that can get there as quickly, if not quicker, than Gabby Williams. And Gabby has length, a different style of length than Sykes does. So how do they then, when they're on the court together, counterbalance? That is where Brittney Sykes comes in. I hope I'm making sense. Let me know in the comments if this makes sense to you, because it's not innately what Sykes is doing on her own. Her stats right now: 15.4 points per game, 3.4 rebounds, 4.3 assists. Four-time all defensive team player. Defensive first team in 2021, defensive second team in 2020 and 22. This is someone who knows how to hoop. Again, if you watched Unrivaled, you already know this. With Rose, won a championship with Unrivaled, taking down the mean monster in Hootie Hoop. Now that, maybe that's why Sky is mad. Maybe that, or actually, was that Vinyl? Who did they see? Now I'm misremembering. Did Rose defeat the Laces or the Lunar Owls? Either way, she took down someone that plays for Minnesota. So there you go. Brittney Sykes is a good get. It's solved also, an uncomfortable truth that Alicia Clark was not the right fit this go round for this Seattle Storm team. Just wasn't a good fit. And that happens. That's bound to happen. The team identified that. I don't know. Are they done? It's only Wednesday night. The deadline is tomorrow, right? I need to look at their salary cap sheet over at Her Hoop Stats. But I mean, I really hate to say it. I have loved AC's game for a really long time. It just wasn't the right fit this year. It didn't pan out. So correcting that, important for this Seattle Storm team. All right, if we look at Her Hoop Stats, yeah, they have 56K, a little over 56K that they have left. So, I mean, yes, everything will be prorated, but yeah, I mean, they could, I guess I should say they could make another trade. I think there could be some candidates. I think there could be some candidates that make sense. But the Seattle Storm need an injection of energy, and Brittney Sykes can do that. If you counter what her skill set is with some of the other teammates that I talked about, then I think you can realistically have some people that are focusing more, not exclusively, but more on their offensive side, and that be their contribution. There's value in that. Offloading Alicia Clark, tough move, necessary. With the acquisition, here's what we got from from the team. Also, no Cook. So Cook is someone that didn't have a lot of minutes, but could get downhill. Not the scoring touch that you need. I think you upgrade. In theory, I think Sykes can get you more points. AC, there was a time where that defense was beautiful to behold, just not quite there, but Sykes can give you that. They gave up a first round pick next year. That's the part that I think, I'm curious about. We've talked a little bit on the show. Hobeta and I, again, she's not able to join tonight, so it's just me, Erica Ayala. So please do comment anything that you have. If you have questions for me, let me know in the chat, because or else this is just me staring at a camera. I don't have anyone to kick off of camera. I'm really bummed about that. Anyway, Hobeta, we'll catch you on the next episode. On the one hand, you got to see what the draft is even going to look like. The Seattle Storm are not playing like a team that's going to have, a pick that's going to be franchise changing for next year. Yes, I will talk about Dominique Malunga, but I just want to land here. Could they get a 2 guard with a number 1 draft pick for next season? Yeah, they could. I think so. Probably. But if they're not going to have a top 4 pick, 5 pick, is it the right 2 guard? Maybe not. So, you don't know. And drafts are funny. Kurt Miller already has kind of talked about, I think when we see the redraft, we'll see some of these players won't have gone as high. I don't know. I guess we'll see. Maybe he's right. Maybe he's not. I don't love them giving away that draft pick. And okay. It works if you do all of the things as I outline them. So basically just do what I say. I think Noelle Quinn knows that, though, just from her comments post-game. I think she knows that there's potential to have a veteran like Sykes. So not only does that give her an edge when it comes to situations, she can read situations even as she's learning the system, as she's learning her teammates. But also, you don't get this far. Brittney Sykes, this is what, her 9th, I think this year is her 9th year in the league. You learn how to shorthand certain things. Not that you go out of your way to kind of be like an ass, but you learn a shorthand, a way to get to the point a little bit quicker. And that's why you want veterans. I feel like even though I talk about, I love having veterans on the team, I feel like I've never really broken that down with enough. Like you when you get veterans, we're seeing it with Emma Meesman. She knew what she needed to put in to find chemistry with Sabrina Ionescu. And Sabrina also knew that. And so there was this beautiful play, beautiful basketball, where they're in a pick and roll, and Emma, rolls towards the basket, and before she even could see that the ball was coming to her, it was right where she could catch it. It's like they say you got to lead, folks. It was like it wasn't a football pass because it was basketball, but the way we think about a beautiful football pass, you make a cut, you run your route, and then you turn around and the ball is right there. That's what this was. That happens because they knew the right questions to ask, they knew the right things to say, and they got there quickly because their job is to troubleshoot. Their job is to, and troubleshooting when your job is professional basketball, that means winning games. That means getting stops. That means finding ways to get your teammates open and getting more points than the other team. My version of troubleshooting is like editing or figuring out software and what social media channels. This is what troubleshooting is when you're a professional basketball player. I want to see how Sykes helps this team troubleshoot. And it doesn't mean that she has to do everything or do anything except observe, provide notes, and set herself up to utilize her skills to best help this team. And ask the rest of the team how she can help to facilitate them doing the same thing. What is the best skill that I have to fix our problem? That's huge. That's huge. If this team wants to climb up the standings. Again, we look at the standings right now, and they've got some work to do. They're a half game up on Vegas. They're a game behind Indiana, who they just played. They are, what is this? 7, 8, 9, so 2.5 games behind Phoenix and Atlanta. And the other thing, though, the other side of this, and Erica Wheeler said this in postgame, is that when you're not able to get wins, you put yourself in a tough spot, and you may be at the mercy of the schedule. You may be at the mercy of the schedule. And if we look at the games coming up, so they lose 106-108 to the Sparks, 78-74 to Indiana, 87, like all of they're right there, 87-91 to Minnesota. They're going to play Vegas, who's right behind them. They're going to play the Sparks, who are coming up. They're coming up hot. Just got to win over Indiana. The Seattle Storm are going to play Atlanta on August. They're going to play Atlanta on these home and home series. Does every team have a home and home? Do y'all know what a home and home is? It basically means you play the same team within several days of each other. One of the games you host, one of the games they host. Oh, schedule trash. They have a home and home with Atlanta. They host on the 13th. They play this is coast to coast, folks. I'm getting mad. I'm all right. I'm fine. I'm not fine, but we'll figure it out. Woof. They play, oh my gosh. Okay. They play at 10 p.m. Eastern time on August 13th in Seattle. Then they play at 10 p.m. Eastern on Friday, August 15th in Atlanta. The 17th, they play Phoenix. Satu, I think, is back and focused, so that's going to be an interesting game. Chicago, we know Angel Reese has been out for a little bit, but don't sleep on Chicago. They played Dallas. They played a competitive game for a really long stretch against New York. Then they play Washington before taking on Indiana and the Lynx, they close out August playing Chicago. This is crunch time, folks. This schedule, if you hang on to old wounds, yeah, this schedule is going to make you uncomfortable. If you let that go, this schedule is an absolute opportunity for you to prove who you are. Two ways of looking at it. Both are valid. Which version of Seattle are we going to see? And can Brittney Sykes help elevate this team to a higher frequency? What do y'all think? Can Brittney Sykes help elevate this team to a higher frequency? To reaching and maximizing their potential? I think so. I think so. I really do. It's not a guarantee. I mean, if you want a guarantee these days, you got to sign Emma Meesseman. That's such a oof. That is quite the signing by New York. Carrington in Minnesota, another very interesting signing. Can Brittney Sykes elevate this team, help them reach max capacity? That's the question. That's the work. What also I want Seattle to be mindful of so that they don't get trapped is that you cannot treat this as Sykes is the savior. Slim is here to assist. Slim is here to assess. Slim is here to, again, help and assist in the elevation process, but it cannot be all on Slim, just like it shouldn't be all on NECA. It shouldn't be all on Gabby. It shouldn't be all on Sky or Erica or anybody. They've got to figure out how to know how to feed the hot hand and know how to put the team in a position to let their best defenders do what they do. Before I get out of here, because it's already late here, I'm usually on Central Time, but it's hella late, and my in-between hair needs to go in my bonnet before I go to sleep. Dominique Malunga starting to see more minutes, and we heard from Noelle Quinn about that. She talked about conditioning, still a little bit of an issue, and that's something that she needed to work on, but that they're starting to get good minutes from Dominique Malunga. Right now, her averages are 5.5 points per game, 3.7 rebounds per game, a little less than 1 assist per game. In her last 5 games, 14 minutes against Washington. That was a loss. 25 minutes in the win over Connecticut. She had 12 points in that game. 20 minutes against the Sparks in a loss, 6 points, but she had 8 rebounds. 9 rebounds against Washington, 6 against Connecticut. The rebounds went down against LA, Indiana, and Minnesota. Or excuse me, those were... Well, yes, the rebounds did go down. I was also just looking at the defensive rebounds. But want to see her improve there because Seattle has to improve there. So Dominique Malunga's got to be in position to rebound. I mean, it's got to happen. 21 minutes against Indiana, 12 points. 17 minutes against Minnesota, 12 points. Dominique Malunga, I think that, sure, I've said this before. I've said it a million times. I get it. You want to be a little bit conservative. Sure, go ahead. Have at it. And I think if they had activated her a little bit sooner, taking the training wheels off a little bit sooner, let me put it this way. If they had done that, I'd be curious to see if there's even more on the stat sheet that Malunga is doing. I mean, I've been pretty consistent though all season that I was like, if you pick at number 2, you play your number 2 overall pick. I just like where do they do that at? Where do they do that at that you don't start the number 2 pick? I mean, I don't know. But she's getting more minutes. It looks like something Noelle Quinn is wanting to work on even more. There are things that Malunga needs to work on more. Sure, I get that. I've said that. I understand that. Abso-freaking-lutely. And it's not going to be perfect out the gate, but the games, it's not that they matter less, but it's understandable because everyone's coming out of the gate. When we're getting to crunch time, this is a team that's jockeying for a playoff spot. The margin of error is less. The games count the same. You either got to win, you got to lose. The games count the same, but the stakes are different because you have games in hand. Everybody does. And now there's a pecking order. The standings are what they are. And so the pressure seems a little different because it is. That being said, Erica Wheeler alluded to this, as did Nneka. Nneka spent more time on it after the Indiana game. I'm not going to remember exactly what she said. I can't quote her exactly. But she was being asked about, being that close and falling short of wins and knowing where you're at in the standings. And her thing was that the team leans into the process, right? Erica Wheeler alluded to it as well. The team leans into the process. The team leans into the work that's done when nobody else is watching. She said something, and it was with respect to conditioning. She's like, you're not adding new skills, right? You're not adding new skill sets mid-season. Fundamentals in the middle of the season. That was from the 90s version of Angels in the Outfield. In the middle of the season, fundamentals. We're not learning new things overwhelmingly. There's no practice time for that. You can't learn new things. The work Nneka was alluding to, and again, paraphrasing what she said, the work was done, should have been done back in March, is I think the month that she used, but in the off season. That's when you put in all of the experimentation. Similarly, there is experimentation that happens in a WNBA season. Nneka was talking more on the individual level. That's how I took it anyway. There is experimentation that happens early in the regular season. But I'll go to something Sandy Brondello said at practice before, or shoot around before yesterday's game. She said, oh crap, now I just forgot what she said. Hold on. Let me run back. Oh, she said she's getting to the point in the season. She was talking about the health of her team. It's hard to play more than, I think she said 6 or 7. And she's not likely to play a full 9 even, the deeper they get, not the closer they get to the postseason, and then definitely when they're in the postseason and trying to make a deep run. The bench gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Not literally, but bench minutes. You're going to your tried and trues. Had Malunga been given a little bit more time, I wonder if she would be even sharper when her time is called in this important stretch for Seattle. But I don't know. Another way to look at it is that she is getting the green light. And so now what is she going to do with it? Malunga, I find very interesting. I think y'all know how I feel on that. So are the recent roster moves enough to make Seattle a contender? I think yes. If I'm just answering that question, I think I've given you examples as to why I think the answer is yes. It's not promised, it's not guaranteed, but it is possible that offloading Clark and Cook and bringing in Sykes, bringing in Slim, puts this team in a better position. That does not take this team off the hook for having to put in the work. There are some teams that they are able to decelerate when they get to the postseason because everything leading up to the postseason was at such an intense level that's not sustainable. But even if they decelerate, they are still competitively above the rest. This is coming from Gino Auriemma. He talked about, and what I'm talking about is process. I want to see this Seattle Storm team, and again, it's a little late to do it now. I want to see this team push their lungs, their leadership, their communication to the absolute brim till the guts are about to pop out in all of these They have to do that work earlier. It has to happen earlier. And that's a timing thing. That's a cadence thing. And you're not always going to be able to do that. I do think this team could have started out of the gate more with a more intense, rapid, intentional pace. I do. But how do you fix it now? I think bringing in Sykes helps that. It doesn't mitigate some of the time lost, in my estimation, but it's a move in the right direction. All right, we're going to end it there, folks. Thank you so much for those who joined live. Not too much in the comments today. Oh, now I see them now. I don't know why I couldn't see the comments earlier. I did miss you, Tulip. I'm just here talking. This is what happens when I have to do all the talking. I don't get to keep up. Usually the comments, it like gives me a little red indicator. So I'm just like, oh, they're not talking tonight. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I did miss y'all. Slim will help provide more scoring, but not shooting or rebounding, which is Seattle's biggest issue, in my opinion. Still a solid upgrade on AC and 10th range pick, which is not too bad. Yeah, I agree. But again, I think if you give Slim some of the responsibilities that some of the other key players have had this season, then maybe it can balance in a good direction. The team defense will be unreal. Team shooting will be about the same. On different ends of the spectrum, though. Yeah, for sure. Overall, fresher legs for everybody will help keep the defensive intensity up. I mean, fresh legs is important. Emma Miesemann, after her first game, who'd they play? Oh, Connecticut. She said, what's the most important thing that you brought? What's the most important thing that you brought to today? And she said, a body. She said a body. Like literally, I'm here. And that was a perfect answer. Not exactly the same situation in Seattle, but yes, a fresh perspective. Maybe not. It's more than a body. It's more than just an additional healthy player, and that's what she meant. In case that wasn't clear, but yeah, a fresh perspective. Nope, not pre-recorded. We're here live. We're here a lot. Washington, yeah, this is a tough one from the Washington perspective. I think it shows that they are turning their sights very clearly on the future. Yeah. We're one game back of Golden State for the 8th and final playoff spot. Glad that my Sparks beat the Clarkless Fever. At least they improved, but I want the chemistry to click. Are you talking about chemistry here, Manuel? Are you talking about chemistry for the Sparks? For the Storm? I mean, honestly, I think either one. I do think that the Sparks are feeling the chemistry build and grow and swell, and the wins have helped with that, of course. I think that Seattle felt good about their chemistry early in the season, but now they have to break through to another level. They have to break through to another level. That's what I think about chemistry. Might not make a huge difference at the end of the day, but the front office had to show the players that they're trying, not just leaving them out to dry. Yeah, that's a valid point. It's not something that I talked about. Again, I don't know why the alerts weren't happening, so I'm just catching up. I'm like, y'all speak to me. And you were. I love y'all. Yeah, I think you're right. Is it enough for this season? To be determined. Is it enough to prove this point, Craig? I don't know. Because I will say I've been starting to get critical, not just of the coaching staff, but the front office as well. So is this the right move? I guess only time will tell. Just realized Minnie and LA, two teams that went to the finals in 16-17, are en fuego, winning 8 of their last 10. Imagine if the two went to the finals this year. I can't imagine it. I'll say that, Manuel. I cannot imagine it. Anything is possible, but I cannot imagine it. Apologies for not paying a lot of attention to the... Hey, man, don't worry about it. I'm just glad you're here. Your work schedule has been tough. All the more reason that I'm just honored that you spend some time with us. Thank you so much for your comments. I don't think this puts us over Atlanta, Phoenix, or Indy, and I'm very worried about LA. LA's streaking at the right time, and again, they went through their licks early. People who listen to my Seattle Storm podcast know that I am obsessed, maybe, with team culture, building teams, leadership development, stuff like that. You want to be in stride. You know, when people are like, oh, you want to peak at the right time. This is the right time to start peaking. This is the right time to start peaking. And you're hearing frustration in my voice because if this doesn't turn around, this will be the second season that Seattle slipped from a top 4 spot in the last month of the season. It was a little less than a month last season. I don't know if that's better or worse. Oh, how do I want to say what I'm thinking? I'm a procrastinator. Always have been. I know this about myself. And I create an anxiety because by procrastinating, I then come under extreme pressure to complete tasks. I, as an analyst of sports, know that if you put in your work early, that gives you more cushion. When you are tight on time, everything has to be perfect. You don't get to look it over again. And you have to hope that your raw talent and your speed and quickness is enough. I'm talking about me and my procrastination, but could I also be talking about Seattle? You gotta bust through. And this is where the timidness, the not putting Malunga in the games earlier, this is where those things burn my grits. You have to create tension for your team. I mean, we're talking basketball, but this is the same in leadership development. You have to create tension so that you can evaluate how they deal with tension. But now you're in a situation where the tension is coming from the rest of the league, as it inevitably should at this time of the year. But if you create that tension, if you provide challenges and benchmarks, then you're already not only evaluating your team and how they deal with those pressure points and moments, but you have the tools and you've equipped them because you've broken out. Hey, it's okay. This is what we wanted. This is what we got. What's the gap? How do we close the gap? What do we need to do in practice, in film, on bus rides, on the private jets? What do we need to do to close that gap? Get Affleck. No, that was a joke. Affleck. You got to close the gap. But if you can't create that safe learning environment or maximize the fact that everyone's still learning their stuff in the first month, then you put yourself in a procrastinator's conundrum where now what you had at least a little bit more control of earlier in the season, now you have little to no control of, and you are flying by the seat of your pants. Again, you are resting and hoping that your raw talent is enough. And some days it might be, and some days it won't be. And it's tough to live with the days that are not enough, knowing that if you had just given a little bit more, a little bit earlier, maybe things could have changed. The shoulda, coulda, wouldas of life. Can we compete with Atlanta, Phoenix, Indiana, and LA for that matter? Compete, yes. Atlanta and maybe LA, at least as of right now, worry me the most. Atlanta, everyone should be scared of Atlanta. They're coming in hot. And what did I just say? Apply that to Atlanta, and now you understand why they're doing what they're doing. Fresher legs is nice. It doesn't matter if you can't shoot and make baskets. That's not true, because what's going to happen is inevitably, eventually, defenses, if Sykes isn't knocking down shots, she's got to take shots. Whether she makes them or not, she's got to take shots early, and then she's got to start making shots. Because what you don't want is that when Sykes is on the court, then that teams feel emboldened to double somebody else up, like NECA or Sky or maybe Gabby. So she's got to shoot the ball and she's got to make some shots. But what Noe likes about Brittney Sykes is that she can get downhill. She can attack and get to the basket. She can attack, get to the basket, maybe get fouled and get to the free throw line. And those points still count as well. But she's got to score. LA does have a squad. LA is looking solid. The Brink block party, excuse me. I think I said 4. I think she had 4 going into the half. This child had 5 blocks in her second or third game back from, was it an ACL and an MCL tear that she, didn't she say that on her, because she's got a podcast too, right? Or confirmed it somewhere in media. Y'all, they're looking scary. And then they're like, oh, Rakia will go off. And then, okay, Rakia has 8 points a game. So De'Erica will go off. Oh, De'Erica's holding it down defensively. Let's let Azare be our leading scorer. Excuse me? Oh my gosh. Ray Burrell is going to have stretches of 5 minutes where she's an absolute terror to the other team. Yeah, LA's looking real good, babes. We might need to have Black Rosie Media podcast for LA Sparks fans because they're looking good. They're looking good. All right. I'm so glad that I did find the comments and that y'all weren't ghosting me. But we're gonna wrap it up here. We're usually about an hour. Well, sometimes. Who knows? Y'all know I act a fool on here. I think that the Storm, this was a good move for the Storm. I think it has the potential to make them the contender that I think they should be. It's not guaranteed. It's not given. That might seem trite or obvious, but I want to state the obvious. It's not a guarantee. And there are plenty of things, even as Sykes comes in, that have to be different. This team has to be different. But let me talk hockey before I get out of here. A lot of times in hockey, they'll say, sometimes you make a goalie change, not only or not exclusively because your goaltender wasn't doing a great job. Sometimes that happens. It bees like that. But sometimes you make a goalie change because in hockey, you can take a goalie out, let them get a breather, and then put them back in the game. A lot of people don't know that. It's very rare, and I don't know why more coaches don't use it because, give them a rest. Anyway, when there's a goalie change, that changes the mentality of the defense in particular, but the whole team. When you know your goaltender, you know what they're going to do. Sometimes you're like, they got me. But when there's a goalie change, you have to now get back to fundamentals in the middle of the season. You have to get back to fundamentals. Maybe that reset. Let me put it this way. I hope that's how Seattle takes this like they're getting a goaltender change. And the goaltender change, anytime a goalie gets pulled, it's rarely only because of what that goalie was doing. And it's likely because of what the team was doing in front of the goaltender. It's just that the goals are literally goals against the goaltender. That's how, everyone perceives it. But sometimes it's like, you got to pull the goalie so the rest of the team steps up. Again, we're not pulling anyone. So it's not like a perfect comp, but I think you have to make a change to get everyone else's attention. You got to get their attention. You got to prove that you're paying attention to Craig. I think that was you, right, Craig? Your point earlier about the front office, FO front office. Is this the wake-up call? Is this the smelling salts? Is this the P&V? I guess we'll find out. Thank y'all for tuning in. Sending love, Hovarta, to you. We'll get you on the next one. And we'll be back next week. We usually record Wednesdays. My travel schedule is a little cray-cray. Got a big hockey tournament coming up. But we will let you know in Slack if you're in our Slack community. Usually we're pretty good at that. If we don't do it, it's my fault. So my bad. Put that on me. But we'll be back next week. And it's going to be a good, we really got to get into some things here with the Seattle team. Absolutely possible for them to regain their footing, but they've got to put in the work. They've really got to commit to putting in the work and be for real about it. Be so for real about it. Good night, Craig. Manuel, thank you so much. I appreciate y'all. Tulip, we miss you all the time. Thank you for coming in. I don't know. It was a little tough for me to get to the comments earlier, so I apologize. But thank y'all. Hey, we live together in that great. Like, people are like, Erica, where are you right now? Like, my backdrop's always changing. Internet's always a little crazy. Either way, thank y'all so much. Have a great night. We'll catch you on the next one. Subscribe to us on YouTube. We've got our newsletter that will be coming out. I'm going to hopefully in the off season make some pretty cool, I think they'll be pretty cool, changes to the newsletter and how we engage and have that engage with our other content. Social media, TikTok, is probably best, TikTok or IG, if not YouTube. Have a great night. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace out, everybody.